Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. It is Friday, May 2nd, 2014, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, the White House says it's conspiracy theory to question the official story of Benghazi. Then, how the United States increased Afghan opium production. And why Wall Street killed Peaches Geldof. That's next on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
I'm never going to commit suicide. Never, 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 never.
The House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa has issued a subpoena for the Secretary of State John Kerry. He wants him to come before a committee on May 21st to talk about Benghazi. He wants him to testify. And now this comes in the wake of those smoking gun emails that show the White House officials worked to craft that narrative. The attack was part of a YouTube video protest, and it did not indicate a broader failure of policy. Now, Issa said in a letter to Kerry, compliance with the subpoena for documents is not a game. Because your department is failing to meet its legal obligations, I'm issuing a new subpoena to compel you to appear before the committee to answer questions about your agency's response to the congressional investigation of the Benghazi attack. So here he goes again, trying to use stronger words to compel them to comply with the inquest to find out what happened with Benghazi. But apparently, what does he just not know how this administration works? They do what they want to do. The Department of Justice is, Eric Holder is still in contempt of Congress for failing to bring forth documents on Fast and Furious.
You don't want to go there, okay?
I don't want to go there?
No.
These emails directly link the White House to Susan Rice's false talking points on Benghazi. Yet they say that they withheld these emails because they had nothing to do with Benghazi. They were just giving her talking points on the general situation going on with the protests going on worldwide. Now, Rand Paul says it's clear that the White House was just more focused on spinning the details of the attack rather than the truth. Paul said the email read like a script from a Hollywood producer. He said it's what a producer would do when saying, what do you want the general feeling to be from this? And the feeling needs to be that this is not terrorism. But now the White House has to backtrack and spin their spin. And how are they going to do that? By gaslighting. They say, what are you talking about? You wanted the emails on Benghazi. These aren't those emails. What emails are you talking about? These are just, they're not a smoking gun. This is an email that says there's a bigger cover-up going on. What are you talking about? It's not another Obama administration scandal. And Jay Carney even went so far as to say it's a conspiracy theory looking for a conspiracy. He said these so-called smoking gun emails had nothing to do with Benghazi. And then he tries to throw the State Department under the bus.
You would have to ask the State Department about their process for responding to FOIA requests. Again, you can just read it and then decide for yourself. As many people have now said and written, like this is a conspiracy theory in search of a conspiracy.
The conservative group comes in and says, we want Benghazi documents. The administration says, this is not a Benghazi document, so we're not turning it over, right?
Again, I don't, like this is a State Department FOIA request response.
But again, we all know how this administration responds to those requests. Apparently now Congress is going to have to get all of their information from outside sources like Judicial Watch, who files FOIA requests. So then they roll in former National Security Council spokesman Tommy Vietor. He is asked as well about the talking points and his role that he played in changing them. Fox News asked him about adding a line that the administration was warned the day before the attacks of social media reports calling for demonstrations. This was in order to bolster this false idea the attack was the spontaneous result of a riot against the video. Well, Vietor affirmed this, but then when Fox News asked him if he'd changed the word attacks to demonstrations, he got amnesia.
Did you also change attacks to demonstrations in the talking points?
Maybe. I don't really remember.
You don't remember?
Dude, this was like 2 years ago. We're still talking about the most mundane
it is the
process
thing that everybody is talking about.
We're talking about the process of editing talking points. That's what bureaucrats do all day long.
So apparently Tommy is who the White House rolls out when they want to just show that they're hip with the kids. And that dude, it was like so 2 years ago, because then he tweeted out that Fox News must have had him on the show to talk about a Throwback Thursday. Now, you know, kind of like Hillary Clinton. What does it matter? Why does it matter? Why are we talking about Benghazi? But that's not all he had to say. He said, I bet you every single person in that White House wished that email had been released earlier. I wish it too, because it tells us nothing new. It tells us that what we said privately was what we said publicly, because that is what we thought had occurred. But that is false. That is false. We are just faced with a lot of false news coming out of the White House right now. Rep. Jason Chaffetz out of Utah entered a new email into testimony yesterday. He entered it with the House Oversight Committee. This email reveals that the State Department, including Clinton aides, knew that Benghazi was a terror attack in the immediate aftermath. This email was sent on September 12, 2012 at 12:46 p.m., just hours after the Benghazi attack took place, and 2 days before that email was sent out by Benjamin Rhodes.
There's a paragraph in here that I think is pertinent to our discussions today. It's referencing the Libyan ambassador. When he said his government suspected that former Gaddafi regime elements carried out the attacks, I told him that the group that conducted the attacks, Ansar al-Sharia, is affiliated with Islamic extremists, end quote. This coming from the State Department, going to Victoria Nuland, Patrick Kennedy, Cheryl Mills, Secretary Clinton's chief of staff. I'd like to enter this into the record, which has not been out there in the public in the past.
Now, Chaffetz said that that was an unclassified email that just hadn't yet been entered into the public record. It hasn't been bought for public review. It just underscores, again, the fact that the White House knew that this was a terror attack. Clinton aides knew, and they wanted to downplay it so it wouldn't draw attention to failed policy. That's their words. And we think it's something even greater than that. This is Paul Joseph Watson's article up on INFOWARS today. Why the White House is desperate to bury Benghazi. The cover-up is about shielding details of arms smuggling to terrorists in Syria. The fact is, an annex near the U.S. Embassy was being used by the CIA to transfer surface-to-air missiles to terrorists in Syria. Now, in May of last year, Rand Paul was one of the first to speculate that the truth behind Benghazi was linked to an illicit arms smuggling program. He told CNN that I've actually always suspected that, although I have no evidence, that maybe we were facilitating arms leaving Libya, going through Turkey into Syria. And he added that he never quite understood the cover-up, if it was intentional or incompetence. Now, at the same time, it emerged that the U.S. State Department had hired an al-Qaeda offshoot organization to defend the Benghazi mission months before the attack. And then months later, Senator Paul was vindicated when it emerged that the CIA had been subjecting its CIA operatives who were on the ground during the attack to mandatory monthly polygraphs in order to prevent them from talking to Congress or the media about a program that revolved around secretly helping to move surface-to-air missiles out of Libya, through Turkey, and into the hands of Syrian rebels. And that was reported by CNN. Now, the real truth behind Benghazi is likely to reveal that the Obama administration knowingly and deliberately provided surface-to-air missiles and other weapons to the most bloodthirsty al-Qaeda jihadists in Syria. So, if a proper investigation into Benghazi was to come about and we were able to get concrete evidence of this happening, Obama would be impeached, members of his administration would be jailed. This is far beyond the articles of impeachment that took down Nixon. And this is just one of the cover-ups that the White House really just wants to sweep under the rug and doesn't want the American people to get to the bottom of. And I'm not talking about them smuggling weapons and Fast and Furious and all that. I'm talking about their hand in the drug trade. Now, Now, specifically opium production out of Afghanistan, it's at an all-time high, and officials are saying that it's because of troop withdrawal. Now, American taxpayers have spent $7.5 billion over the past 12 years on counter-narcotics efforts inside Afghanistan. But according to a Special Inspector General report, since 2008, these so-called eradication efforts have affected, on average, less than 4% of the annual national poppy crop. So, as we've shown you before, the troops are actually there protecting the opium farmers. And officials, they say, you know, not to worry, heroin from Afghanistan's opium may never reach the U.S. because those supplies typically come from South America, and they would know. But this particular opium, they're worried because it goes to enrich the Taliban and al-Qaeda. And so now they're using their buzzwords. It's not just about drug trafficking. They say it's about national security. And so counter-narcotics efforts must be increased, not decreased. But we did just learn that there was only a 4% success rate in counter-narcotics programs. Basically, they just want our tax dollars to go pay for them to wipe out their competition. And that's why I kind of find it really funny, albeit tragic, when you see headlines about Peaches Geldof and how now the authorities say she likely died from a heroin incident. I don't know if it was an OD, but heroin definitely played a part in her death. And now they're looking for the killers. They're looking for the dealers that supplied her with this heroin. But if that's what you're really after, cut the head off the snake, am I right? Most heroin is produced in Afghanistan, which is a country that is occupied by the U.S. military. In 2009, Ethan Huff wrote, "The U.S. military has been specifically tasked with guarding Afghan poppy fields from which opium is derived in order to protect this multi-billion-dollar industry that enriches Wall Street, the CIA, MI6, and various other groups that profit big time from this illicit drug trade scheme." That same year, we reported on the brother of Afghan President Hamid Karzai. He was the kingpin of the country's booming opium trade. Now, Karzai was also on the CIA payroll, and that was according to a story that was published by the New York Times. And here's a clip of Geraldo. It's kind of hard to find this clip on YouTube, but of course we have it archived. This is where a soldier is explaining to him his duties there in Afghanistan.
U.S. soldiers greet farmers.
Can you show me which poppy field is yours?
They commiserate with farmers having a bad harvest.
Tell him I'm very sorry for his field this year, and hopefully he has a better harvest next year.
And in one case, they even paid a farmer $1,000 after U.S. and Afghan special forces burned his crop.
It goes on and on. There is an abundance of evidence that the U.S. government is involved in the international drug trade. You can go to the article on INFOWARS.com. There it digs deep. Much of the information is actually published in the Congressional Record, but Kurt Nimmo does a really good job of breaking it down. But really, if you want to find Peaches Geldof's murder, just head to Langley, Virginia. You'll probably find the murderer there. Now, coming up, we have a very special report. Alex Jones, he decided that he is going to dole out a Baghdad Bob Award for the biggest political liar of the last 20 years. It was pretty hilarious. That happened on today's show. And then Jakari Jackson, he asks the question, who really should have the right to bear arms? All that and more is coming up right after this.
My friends, Alex Jones here to tell you about some of the most important information concerning you and your family's health. Radiation levels have more than doubled in the last 60 years in the Northern Hemisphere from all of the nuclear testing and radiological accidents. Radioactive contamination is now in most of the food supply. There's only two ways to avoid this. Move south of the equator or properly protect your thyroid with nascent iodine. Looking to protect my family, I've done deep research. Nascent iodine is the purest, cleanest, absolute best form of iodine to protect yourself and your family. It's made right here in the USA, completely non-GMO. I searched out the best quality and now have developed a double-strength form of nascent iodine, exclusively available at INFOWARSLife.com. Nascent iodine is on record as one of the only safe ways to detox from fluoride poisoning. Survival Shield Nascent Iodine. Secure your super high-quality nascent iodine today at INFOWARSLife.com. That's INFOWARSLife.com.
Hi, I'm Shane Steiner. A lot of you have been following my progress using Super Male Vitality. The last 19 weeks has been an incredible experience. I was feeling a little down and lethargic during the holidays, and none of the supplements that I was taking were doing any good. That's when my longtime friend from high school, Alex Jones, introduced me to Super Male Vitality. I was a little skeptical at first. Not only would I have the energy to work out and go to the gym, but it was actually the changes were happening to my body a lot more rapidly. My whole mood, my libido, everything had completely changed. The concentrated organic herbs, they stimulate your natural systems to produce the natural hormones that you need. I just really wanted to bulk up and hit it hard, and I went in for about the first 5 weeks and was lifting heavy weight and just really hitting it hard, and I gained 20 pounds of muscle immediately. Since that, I've decided I was gonna lose some weight and slim down. I just changed up my workout a little bit, and 35 pounds came off. Folks, this is not a joke. This is not a gimmick, it's real. Super Male Vitality, available at InfoWarsLife.com.
The Republican Guard is in full control. Everything is taken care of. What you are hearing, I don't know whether you can distinguish whether this is our missiles and our artillery or theirs. We will defeat them. We will fight them till we clean our country from their dirts. They killed a number of their mercenaries, injured another number, and the rest flew like rats. They are a snake moving in the desert. We push them, they run away to the back, we pounding them, they disappear in the depth back.
If you've got health care already, then you can keep your plan if you are satisfied with it.
If you like the plan you have, you can keep it.
I intend to keep this promise. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan.
If you like your plan and your doctor, you can keep them.
You'll be able to keep your health care plan.
If you like your plan, you keep your plan.
If you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
If you like your current insurance, you keep that insurance. Period.
Time after time, and said that she was referring to talking points created by the CIA. Now we see a document that comes from the White House, not from the CIA, attributing the protests to the video. And we have the former director of the CIA saying that that was not something that his analysts had attributed.
That document that we're talking about today was about the overall environment in the Muslim world.
Say that the attack at Benghazi was rooted in a protest over the video? That's what she said.
I know that you and I are both in a different time zone right now.
What difference at this point does it make?
It's not about Benghazi. Why turn it over in a Benghazi suit? It seems...
you would have to ask State Department about their process for responding to FOIA requests. Again, you can just read it and then decide for yourself. As many people have now said and written, like, this is a conspiracy and theory and search of a conspiracy.
The conservative group comes in and says, we want Benghazi documents. The administration says, this is not a Benghazi document, so we're not turning it over, right?
Again, I don't, like, this is a State Department FOIA request response.
What difference at this point does it make?
Now the Republican Guard is in full control of Saddam International Airport, and those mercenaries now outside the airport in Abu Ghraib district, and they are surrounded, and we are pounding them by missiles and heavy artillery. We are deciding it's under our control.
From From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new INFOWARS Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
A chemical spill contaminating the water supply in 9 West Virginia counties.
This year alone, over 300,000 people in West Virginia had their drinking water contaminated.
What are the health effects of having these drugs in our drinking water?
It's forced medical treatment without the consent of residents.
My friends, water filtration is one of the most basic actions you can take to protect you and your family from the harmful toxins and heavy metals in your tap water.
On average, the county says it sprays with the glyphosate at least once a week.
Few filters cut out the glyphosates that is found in water supplies worldwide. Remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, hydrofluorosilicic acid, sodium hexafluorosilicate.
Fluoride, it is in tea, it's in coffee, it's in water, it's in bread, it's in toothpaste.
It is our responsibility to protect our families. The establishment's not going to do it. It's time to take action. It's time to filter our water. For a limited time, use the promo code WATER15 and get 15% off on all ProPure systems at InfoWarsStore.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
There is often talk that only military and police should have guns, that if there is an incident, a man in uniform will swoop in and save you. And there are plenty of good people in those positions. But we can't ignore the blatant abuses of power that do occur, such as an off-duty NYPD member who got drunk and shot a man 6 times. To anyone who'd point out that the man was off the clock at the time of the shooting, I'd be quick to point out that he shot a man 6 times. On the other side of the country, a man fleeing from police was shot in the back, fell down a staircase, and died. Reports are that the man had previously been menacing with a pair of scissors, but was unarmed when he was killed from behind. Moving now to Texas, a sheriff responding to a burglary killed the dog of the victim who called him. Apparently, pepper spray wasn't a good enough option to keep the dog at bay. And earlier this year, Albuquerque police killed a homeless man for the heinous crime of camping.
Do it. Get on the ground! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Don't make noise! Put your hands out to your side and drop the knife! Hands out to your side! Beanbag! Beanbag! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Drop the knife! Still got the knife in your hand? Negative.
Let's contrast that with responsible citizens handling firearms.
While they're reversing, the lady's holding onto her purse still, chasing him all the way to the middle.
That's when a perfect stranger intervenes. You can see him there in the PT Cruiser at the top of the screen.
And that Good Samaritan came out and drew his weapon and scared them. And then that's when he pulled him out the car.
Someone snapped this picture of the man holding the 2 suspects at bay. A few minutes later, police arrived.
She heard the suspect say this.
He said that crazy has a gun, and that's when I was finally down on the sidewalk and I shot it into the dirt, into the grass area, and to let him know, you know, I've got a gun and I know how to use it.
With all of this in mind, the Department of Justice is continuing their attack on the Second Amendment by limiting banking options for gun stores. This in addition to the DOJ running guns into the hands of Mexican drug cartels with Operation Fast and Furious. So to the Good Samaritans and constitutional police alike, be aware that if the DOJ continues these actions virtually unchecked, you may find your right to bear arms infringed in a way that you wouldn't expect. You can find more reports at InfoWars.com.
One thing that I think is clear with young people and with adults as well is that we just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Well, thank you for tuning in to the show tonight. There are many more special reports coming up right after the news, but please pick up a copy of this month's edition of the INFOWARS magazine. It recaps the battle for Bunkerville, everything that went down there, including Dirty Harry Reid and Cliven Bundy and all of his supporters. We've got some great graphics here from the graphics department, kind of breaking down the reality of the grazing cattle there versus the desert tortoise and the endangered desert tortoise. Basically, nature had it right to begin with. In the 1930s, when the cattle were just grazing freely, the turtles themselves were living in abundance. And then as the feds came in and took control of the land, not only did the cattle go down by about 90%, they reduced that, but the tortoises themselves went down by about 97%. So it's definitely not about protecting an endangered desert tortoise. It's more so about controlling this land and apparently reducing the beef production also there in an effort to control our food and how much food is coming in and out of our farmland. So thank you, BLM. That's all here in this edition of the INFOWARS magazine. Be sure to pick it up. You help support our operation. And thank you all so much for watching the show tonight. We'll see you here next week, 7 p.m. Central.
Tune in to PrisonPlanet.tv for an extended broadcast.
Celebrate the spirit of freedom and liberty upon which our nation was founded at InfoWarsShop.com. Molon Lave is ancient Greek for come and take it. This popular design combines both classic Greek Spartan imagery with modern M16 assault rifles. Now available in women's tees and proudly made in the USA. Celebrate the spirit of 1776 with the George Washington brass belt buckle or this incredibly sharp-looking 1776 hat. Badass. And be sure to check out the new arrivals at InfoWars Life, where you can prepare your body to perform at peak levels with Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine, Super Male Vitality, and Fluoride Shield. And wake up, America. Immune Support Blend is the healthy choice for the gourmet coffee lover. So get incredibly high-quality, freedom-based products and help fund the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
Does the term public servant sound like an anachronism to you? Something from a bygone era where people believed that the government worked for them? When they paid the salaries, they believed they were the masters? Well, the mindset among most people in government today appears to be that they are the masters, we are the slaves, and many of the slaves have that same attitude. Take this story out of Louisiana. A mother's concerned when her asthmatic son turns red, complains of chest pains, so she calls for an ambulance. Now, the EMS personnel don't show much concern for his medical condition. In fact, even though he's pointing to his chest, according to the mother, they say, well, he's pointing to his stomach, so he's not having any chest issues or asthma conditions. And then they start to ask why he's not in school. When they find out that he's homeschooled, they begin an inspection of the house. Taken back by this, she confronts these EMS personnel, and they say, well, we're agents of the state. So she calls the supervisor and complains, and he says, they're agents of the state. Now, that's in Louisiana. In North Carolina, a sheriff is talking about the immense powers that he has over your life as part of his election campaign. In an article from Lou Rockwell's blog that's on InfoWars, Sheriff Ed Brown, the delusional dictator of Onslow County, North Carolina, he writes on his election flyer, the vast majority of our duties and functions are performed with only our conscience watching and directing us. And that's a big part of the problem. We see over and over again that violent confrontations with the public, unjustifiable violence and brutality against the public is rarely, if ever, disciplined against the officers who commit these offenses. They're protected by the police department or by the unions, Rarely does anything ever happen to them, so they get this message loud and clear. This is the rest of his flyer. Those in the law enforcement profession have complete power over you, your life, your family, your loved ones, your rights, your freedom, your future, everything precious to life. From the very word of a law enforcement officer, all those precious things of life hang. We've seen over and over again that attitude, not only from law enforcement, but from every government agency, that they have complete power over you, your life, your family, everything hangs by a thread, hangs by their discretion, that they're not accountable to anyone. Were those remarks out of context? Were they misconstrued? Actually, Sheriff Brown's supporters have essentially doubled down on his remarks. Here's what one person wrote to a newspaper. Officers can ask you to get out of their car. They can handcuff you to protect themselves. They have a lot of power over your life. If you're in a dangerous situation, your life is in their hands. No, actually, he got that wrong. If your life is in their hands, you're in a dangerous situation. This sheriff is up for re-election this Tuesday. And look at what he did at a forum where he's debating his opponent. He actually accused his political opponent of being involved in bombing threats that were carried out by an 18-year-old. The way that he made these threats was with a threatening phone call, which was recorded.
This young man has told me you're the reason for his bomb threats. And the general public is going to believe that.
You hear Brown on the phone with his longtime friend and challenger, Hans Miller.
When somebody makes false allegations without corroboration, that, to me, is a loss of integrity, and integrity, once lost, can never be gained back.
That's right, he makes these vague threats, and he says, well, I don't know what to make of this. I'm just going to have to call in the media and let them decide whether this is true or not. A threat, trying to get the guy to back off.
I find there is absolutely no credible evidence to support such an allegation against Hans Miller or his campaign.
But of course, the district attorney says it is totally unprofessional, and it's not the first unprofessional thing this guy has done. This now borders on the ridiculous. This same North Carolina sheriff, Sheriff Brown of Onslow County, used a wire hanger as a divining rod to search for a buried body. Now, this is being reported by the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, North Carolina. And what he did was he took this divining rod and he walked back and forth over the area so much that he erased any footprints, hampering the investigation. So the question is, though, who is dumber? This sheriff or the people who will vote for him?
You are watching the INFOWARS Nightly News, which airs 7 p.m. Central at INFOWARSnews.com. Members can share their passcodes with up to 11 other people, and your support is helping us defend liberty worldwide.